And then we're getting into the next phase, which is really the whole idea of what you buy and what you do being an experience. Denmark is taking this to the next stage. They've created this Institute for the Experience Economy. And I was over there speaking at their board meeting in September. And they want everything you do to be an experience, everything you buy, everything you see, every place you go, every company you go to. So you go into a company making chocolates and you actually watch them making it. They give you samples. They talk about how they make it. It's the total experience they're trying to introduce into their economy, where it's about sensation and it's about about being not just tangible goods, but memorable goods. So it's about not just being a user, but being a participant. Third is that it affects where we want to live and sort of where businesses, where talented people go. Joe Courtwright in Oregon has written this, doing these studies called The Young and the Restless, where the 25 to 34-year-olds go, and they're all places they want to go, where they have the amenities, where they have the music, the entertainment, the coffee shops, all the things that make a difference in a place and make you want to go there. Fairfield, Iowa. This is a little town, 9,500 people in Iowa. People go there, and originally these are all transcendental meditators. It's Maharishi University that drew them there, and there's this big high-tech cluster. But eventually, they drew 40 fast growth companies. They have 50 company headquarters. They're picked the top entrepreneurial city in 2003. Mother Jones said we're one of the 12 great places you've never heard of in the U.S. And this whole thing is based on their arts and their culture, along with, of course, the transcendental meditation. A lot of places are giving incentives to get people to go places. They're offering tax breaks. They're offering free costs, low-cost loans. They're offering all kinds of things. Money for architects to design. Maybe the best known is Paducah, Kentucky, which really did it in a big. They've got 50 artists there in this neighborhood. It's all redone. They've got 22 galleries, a new theater, a symphony orchestra, a cafe culture. And you go there now, and basically it's the way they advertise themselves. It's now one of the cultural, yeah, and they advertise all over. And the other thing that's really important to remember about the creative economy is that it's embedded in so many other aspects of the economy. It doesn't stand alone. It's part of agriculture, it's part of technology, it's part of tourism. That's the obvious one. It's part of manufacturing. It's part of all our consumer products, our lifestyle, spiritual, and there's a piece of it that overlaps into all of these, and you can increase the competitiveness of all these other clusters if you use the arts and work correctly. What you get is the connection between the arts, where you get the art of coffee in New York, the designer omelets in Montpelier, the handcrafted food in Carrboro, North Carolina, wine and art. Lower right is in Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. It's the Bread and Puppet Theater, if any of you know. My wife used to be a puppeteer and lived there, but they have this wonderful puppet theater, but they tap 1,300 trees, and they sell maple syrup, they make bread, they have gardens, and that's the way they earn their living to go out and do their puppetry. Spiritual art, some of these pictures are a little too dark to see, but when you go to Europe, a lot of the art you see are in churches or in mosques and synagogues, anywhere. And in fact, half of the musicians in the country work for church. A lot of connection between places that have the arts and the healing waters, and I know that's part of the background of this community, but Asheville was once a place people went healed. Eureka Springs, Arkansas, the healing waters, people went there, and that's become the most concentrated art community of Arkansas. There's often a connection between the spiritual and the arts. And I don't know if you can see this very well. The lower right is actually a car. It's not a painted car, it's actually tiled, and that's a tile company in Italy. It's all little small tiles. They've got this huge showroom. It's like going into an art museum to see everything they've done with tiles. And one thing we learned, we used to go to Italy to try to figure out how they would manufacture so successfully, why they were working. I went with groups from Michigan, I took 7 different delegations over there. And we all thought it was about technology and marketing and networking, and none of us noticed at the time. A lot of it has to do with the way they embed their art and culture and history into their products, which makes them able to still make them in Italy. The lower left, that's the organic mechanic in Asheville. And The upper right, the woman, the sock lady from Vermont making mismatched socks. You buy 3, you get a pair plus a spare. Couldn't make them fast enough and went to North Carolina to make them in higher quantities, but they're beautiful socks. These people all realize that the style and art within your product is really important. And innovation, I mean, this is a study done in Silicon Valley. Over half the people there say they're also artists. They're potters or poets or they play music, they're pianists, they do something on the side, but their art is important to them. It has a lot to do with the creativity within Silicon Valley. And almost all of them have artistic hobbies. You can see that all of them value art, and that's a big part of their economy, and now they're finally beginning to discover the importance of the arts. We've been working a lot with community colleges, with networks of colleges around the new media arts and around the crafts, and these are 3 colleges that introduced art into their welding programs because it's easier to draw students in, and it embeds some of the right brain thinking, makes them realize they have other options than just sort of mass production welding. People begin to realize that the technical programs that we teach in the college ought to be also about art. And Tamara mentioned we've been doing these studies. We've done studies in different states already. And just to give you a sense of what we've done and learned in these studies, we've used a similar process in all of them, but we haven't always used the same measure for what the creative economy is because every place is a little bit different. But mainly we try to figure out what is the scale and scope of your creative economy in terms of number of people, number of companies. We try to figure out what are the assets that you have for the creative economy, look at the various uses of design, look at we do case studies, vignettes. We did a book of them in Arkansas. We're doing 12 in Mississippi right now. Look for distinctive qualities. We try to look to engage people at focus groups and talk about what we're learning, so we make sure we get buy-in and we really understand what's going on there, and then try to come up with a really good plan, some action items. We've done surveys of artists, and interestingly enough, no matter where we do it and how these change, these numbers are pretty steady. These are the kinds of assets we look at. We look at organizations, we look at events and places, we look at resources, educational system. It's not easy to do this because so many places do more than one thing. We focus a lot on the educational institutions because we feel that's a major part of it. And this 5% figure is pretty standard around the world. Most people that do it, no matter what definition they come up with, sort of end up with something around 5% of the people in the workforce are working in the creative economy. And just to give you some idea of how they differ, in North Carolina, a big focus on the Piedmont, on the history, the tradition of manufacturing. They've got a lot of art galleries and artists there, but they're losing their manufacturing, and the only way they're going to keep it is by trying to introduce the art into the manufacturing. Handcrafted. The one thing I want to mention here that they're doing, which is fairly new, is now they're trying to work with interior decorators and architects and builders and try to get them to use more handcrafted architectural elements. Discussion, but basically the barriers are that we underestimate the scale, we perceive it as only cultural, and I don't want to understate. I mean, it is cultural. It's not just about commerce. It's just that that's the way we've always thought about it. I'm just trying to get some balance in this, to think about the commercial side of it also, or at least the economic side of it. That we have this limited definition of what innovation means, that we think of innovation as being driven down by research labs at universities and R&D, and not user-driven innovation. A friend of mine who was a professor at the Harvard Business School just sent me an email. He said 85% of the innovation in the country right now is user-driven, the design and the use of the good, and 99% of the support system is driven down by technology and the lack of organizations that represent the entire scope. And everything I've talked about, all of our studies are on our website. They're all free. Well, thank you very much.